Hey cutie, it's Cunning Little Cutie, and today I'm so excited because I'm going to be going through my TBR for the Gilmore Girls Readathon. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this readathon. When I saw that Liv's Library had posted her announcement video, I almost dropped my phone. I was so excited. So as the name implies, this is a readathon about all things Gilmore Girls. It is warm, it is cozy, it is literally the perfect readathon for November because it's fall, but it's not like exclusively Halloween. Like, it's just kind of the cozy, warm, perfect November vibes. And I'm just so excited. So put together this list of not only the books that I would like to be reading for this readathon, but also like some books that I've already read that fit the prompts super well. So if you need some ideas for books to put on your TBR, I have got you, okay? You are in the right place. So let's get started. First up, of course, we have a book set in fall or winter because, as we all know, it's basically just perpetually fall and winter in Stars Hollow. There's just something magic that they put in the sauce of those fall and winter Gilmore Girls episodes. And I have the perfect book for this. This is a graphic novel, and as you may already know, when it comes to readathons, and especially if they're only like a week long, graphic novels are your best friend. And this graphic novel is so perfect for this prompt. It is called Source-Align. And when I tell you that I opened up this book and my jaw dropped because I could not believe how unbelievably beautifully autumnal this book is. You literally open it on the very first page, and the first panel is this super spooky, creepy house on a hill with, like, it's at night, and there's these beautiful like orange leaves like on the trees in the yard, and it's just like autumn in a picture. It is autumn in a picture. So this story is basically about this little girl who is a like magical zoologist, and so she is into studying like magical creatures. It's very like Newt Scamander as a child vibes. So she goes off to this island where all these kids, where there's like this magical school for kids to come and study all of these magical creatures like unicorns and sea monsters and fairies and griffins and like all these really cool things. And she's there, she's studying all these animals, and there's some sort of like mystery involved. Like, I think one of the students goes missing and they have to figure out what happened to them. It is just so cute. It's so cute. Next up we have the complicated love interests prompt, because if you have seen even 1 or 2 seasons of Gilmore Girls, you know that Rory's love life, and Lorelai's, but especially Rory's, is tumultuous. There's lots of different players on the board. Let me know in the comments which team you were on. When I first watched the show back, I don't know, I think I was like 18 or 19, I binged the whole thing with my mom. I was unequivocally Team Jess. But watching it, you know, when I was a few years older, I was like, Jess was just terrible to her. Like, how did I stand for this? So now I'm kind of like, you know, I don't personally like Logan, but I can kind of see why they're perfect for each other. So needless to say, very chaotic love square. It's like more than a triangle for sure. So for this prompt, I thought, what better, like what more complicated love interest can you get than a paranormal romance? I've been super into those lately. If you have not watched it already, go and check out my paranormal romance book recommendations video if you are interested in finding more books that fit that trope. But I've got 2 that I just recently bought for myself and therefore really want to read this fall. The first one is called This Blood That Binds Us by S.L. Coakley, and this is a book I found on TikTok. It's kind of like a TikTok sensation, I would say, but basically it is about this family of 4 brothers who are vampires, and one of them accidentally bites a human girl, and then it turns out she goes to the same university as him. So needless to say, she does not turn into a vampire, but she does find out about vampires and about his family, and it is supposed to just have like all of the cozy, like Twilight-esque, you know, Forks, Washington vibes, except it's set in college rather than high school. And all of the vampires are actually true to their age, so it's not like one of those really weird like 100-year-old age gap sort of situations. Like they're actually 20 years old or whatever they say. So that's my first pick, but then I also have a backup in case, like, you know, I need to switch it up, and that is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This book is all about zombies, and it's basically set in this like fictional town where when people die, if their bodies are not like properly prepared or whatever, the souls cannot pass on into the afterlife, and then they become zombies. So our main guy is a marshal, and his job is like to protect the town from zombies. Then we have our main girl, who basically owns like a magical funeral parlor, and her job is to prepare the bodies so that they don't turn into zombies. And this is being marketed as You've Got Mail meets Howl's Moving Castle, like the kind of enemies to lovers pen pals situation of You Got Mail, but in the fantastical, magical, beautiful pastel world of Howl's Moving Castle and like a Studio Ghibli film. Okay, next up we have a book with family drama. Obviously I would say that this is for the whole Emily and Richard Gilmore dynamic, because they definitely start off pretty rough around the edges and pretty dramatic. Obviously, like, you come to love them, but in the beginning they're a lot to handle. So I also have two books for this prompt as well. The first one is one that I came across at Barnes & Noble the other day. I think it was their like young adult or like middle grade pick for October, because I saw it everywhere in the store, and that is Dust and Grim by Chuck Wendig. So this is basically kind of a Monster Mash version of The Parent Trap, where these two siblings are split at birth, and one goes to grow up with the mother and one goes to grow up with the father. But then somehow both of the parents die, and so the sister shows up at the brother's house and is like, look, I want my piece of the inheritance. And it turns out that the family business is actually a monster mortuary, which, so cool. Oh my gosh, that is like so cool. And so basically she ends up having to like learn this whole family business and how to deal with like werewolves and vampires and all of the cool things. And I will be honest, the thing that really made me interested in buying this book is because on the cover it was advertised by none other than Trenton Lee Stewart. And if you're not familiar with that name, he is the author of The Mysterious Benedict Society, which was my favorite series growing up. So literally anything that he like gets his stamp of approval is good enough for me. Okay, and then the other book I wanted to recommend for this prompt is an adult fantasy that I just recently read. Well, like I read the first book in the series, and that is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Obviously this one gets recommended a lot for its like boarding school trope and for the like magical school trope, which is great. But this book actually has a lot of family drama in it as well, because our main character, Elle, has a very complicated relationship with her mother. Like, not a bad one, but they're just so different, and it really goes in to a lot of detail as to why their relationship is so complicated, because her mother is like such a light, welcoming, warm personality that just like everybody loves. Like, you can't help but love her when you meet her, whereas Elle is like the prickliest, like rough on the outside, like does not make a good first impression type of person. Pretty much at the start of the book, like everybody in the school hates her and avoids her. So she's always just had a very weird relationship with her mother because of that, because, you know, she feels like she's not understood and like she can't really relate to her mother. But like she also loves her mother because her mother's an amazing person and takes care of her and loves her. So like it's just it's like lots of layers. So I would definitely say that this is a very good book for this prompt. And it's a series, so I already read the first book, and who knows, I might continue the series for this readathon. Okay, next up we obviously had to have the small town vibes prompt because it's Gilmore Girls, it's Stars Hollow, it is the quintessential small town in America. I have 2 recs for this one. One is one that I'm hoping to read and one is one that I have already read. The first one that I'm hoping to read is Wild as the Witch by Rachel Griffin. This is marketed as Pacific Northwest vibes, which I'm so excited about. It is basically a love to hate romance between a witch and the guy that gets on her nerves. So basically our main character is a witch who kind of has a hard time keeping her magic to herself, and she accidentally like reveals that she's a witch to like regular people and gets into trouble for it. So she's trying really hard to like keep it together, and the way that she, you know, kind of vents and like relieves her stress and gets everything out is by writing these curses that she never actually intends to like cast or like send out into the world. She just writes them down and then gets rid of them. But one day after this guy, the potential love interest, really gets on her nerves, she writes a curse about him, and then before she can destroy it, this bird swoops down and snatches it up and flies away with it. So the 2 of them have to basically team up and trek across the Pacific Northwest to find this bird so that it doesn't unleash this curse on the world. And apparently instead of the stereotypical 1 bed trope, it has a 1 tent trope. So I'm really excited because it's reminding me of like the vibes of that scene in Eclipse when, like, I know it's kind of cringy, but I like it. When like Bella and Edward and Jacob are in that tent like up on the mountain and Edward and Jacob are arguing and stuff, like there's something about that scene. And then the book that I've already read, well, it's a series and I haven't finished the series, but I've read the first book and it is called Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater, and I believe it is set in Michigan. It's like somewhere near the Great Lakes, and it is like the same sort of like vibes. It's basically the Midwest equivalent of the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I see it in my mind because it's so cozy and it's like set near the forest and there's like snow, and it's just, there's just like something, there's something magical about it that really gives me the same vibes as I get when I read Twilight. It's just so warm and cozy and like a place where you would just want to have a cabin and curl up and read a book. And it is about werewolves. It is like, I am convinced that if this series had caught on and like been adapted the way that Twilight was, this could have just as easily been as successful as Twilight. Like, it's got so many of the same elements, but it doesn't feel derivative at all. And in my opinion, it is a much healthier relationship rather than like some of the toxic red flags that are in Twilight. So yeah, if you are looking for something similar to Twilight, but like it doesn't feel like Twilight fan fiction or anything like that, you definitely need to check out Shiver. Okay, our next prompt is a book either written by an Asian author or that has some sort of Asian representation in it. And I have a lot of really good recommendations for this one. So, first off is a manga series that I really want to finish, but at the same time I'm like trying to spread it out and savor it because it is so good, and that is Witch Hat Atelier by Kamomi Shirahama. And the way I've described this in the past is homeschool Hogwarts. That is like, I still think that is just the best description of this book because it's like these little girls who are learning how to be witches and like how to use magic and stuff, but it's not set at this big like magical school the way books like that normally are. It is an atelier, which is kind of like a small studio or like apprenticeship sort of situation. So there's only like 3 or 4 of them, and then they're living in this house all together, and then they've got their like teacher, and it is so cozy, and the magic system in this book is so incredible. Like I don't even want to explain it because it was so fascinating to me just like reading it for the first time. I don't want to spoil it, but it has a very interesting magic system. Next one is a recommendation that I read this year and was literally like one of the best books I read, but probably the best fantasy that I read, and that is Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. So this is the start of a new series. I believe it's gonna have 3 parts. The next one comes out in 2023, and I cannot wait. So basically in this world, it is set in London, and it is about these like 12 different monster families, and monsters are basically like magical beings where each family has their own special kind of power or ability, but then all of them collectively can also time travel. So it is a time travel story, and it is it is definitely the best time travel story I've ever read as far as like the logistics of it, because I feel like time travel is super fascinating, but it's also a can of worms because it's one of the easiest like things to pick apart, and there's usually like always so many plot holes and little missing details and things that just like don't really add up if you like really sit down and think about it. But this book, it genuinely adds up. It genuinely makes sense. It is the most interesting, well thought out, well developed time travel story I've ever read. And there's a love triangle, and like, the characters are all so amazing. The way, like, I don't want to explain the way that time travel works because it's really interesting and I don't want to give it away, but it's really cool. And then the last book that I want to recommend for this one is a short story anthology that just came out in September, and that is Eternally Yours. And it is all paranormal romances. As you can see, there's a theme. I'm really into paranormal romances this year. But it is basically like, I believe maybe 13 different stories and authors. So each story is about a different type of magical creature and a different couple. So we have like mermaids and vampires and ghouls and goblins and like all these different types of creatures. And we have some amazing authors. In particular, we have Kat Cho and Chloe Gong, and I have never read any of Chloe Gong's books, but I follow her on TikTok and she is absolutely hilarious. So I'm really excited to see what all of the authors come up with, but especially her. Okay, and then the last prompt is a book with leaves on the cover, and I was determined to work this book into this readathon. It took me a little while, like, going through the prompts to figure out which one, but it fits perfectly for this one, and that is Garlic and the Vampire by Brie Paulson. This book came out last year, I think, or early this year. And then the sequel just came out, Garlic and the Witch, and this is just the cutest graphic novel. It is about this witch who is like a gardening witch, so she has like lots of land and she grows lots of vegetables and has kind of like these herbs and different remedies that she sells at a like magical market, but she is having a hard time managing everything on her own, and she's like kind of getting old and she's like kind of getting achy, and she just needs some help. And so she like puts this spell on a few of the vegetables in her garden to make them come alive and basically be her little gardening helpers. And so all the different characters are like carrots and potatoes and like asparagus and all these cute little, it's kind of like VeggieTales. And so our main character is Garlic, and basically the plot of the story is that they're all having a good time. They're like gardening together, and then they find out that a vampire actually moves into their neighborhood, like not too far away, and they're all really nervous because they're like, is he here to hurt us? Like, is he here to eat us? Like, what's he gonna do, you know? And so they're all very scared. And so Garlic ends up going on a little quest to find out what this vampire's intentions are and try to protect her friends. And honestly, going into this, like, I never would have thought that I would relate so much, like on such a deep, visceral level, to an anthropomorphic piece of garlic, but I did. Like, this main character is genuinely one of the most relatable characters I've read in a very long time, because she struggles with anxiety. She's like very nervous, but then at the same time she wants to be brave. She wants to overcome these worries that are bothering her, and she is just like very inspiring, and I just love her so much. She's so cute. Okay, so those are all of the books on my TBR for the Gilmore Girls Readathon. Obviously, I'm not actually going to be reading all of these. I am not one of these girlies who like zooms through books every day. Like that's like impossible, unrealistic for me. But I wanted to go ahead and make a big list that I could then choose from depending on like what my mood is when the readathon starts, and I wanted to give you plenty of recommendations for whichever prompts that you want to read for. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know first off if you are going to be participating in this readathon and what books that you are hoping to read, and let me know what team you are on, Team Dean, Jess, or Logan, and please let me know if there's any way I can be encouraging you or praying for you this week. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!